Congratulations! You've installed the world's most popular website platform, WordPress. So, what's next? Do you start creating content now? How do you make sure your site doesn't just become a big target for spammers? And how do you control the way your site functions and performs? Okay, so first off, we're going to head into the dashboard, and first we're going to delete the dummy content that WordPress comes with out of the box. So you'll see we've got a post, we've got a page, we've got a category, we've got a comment, and that comment is approved. So we're going to go in and delete all those things. So by deleting the content, we're also deleting the comment. And when you delete something, when you trash it, it actually just goes into the trash. So you can actually restore that if you want to, or you can go in and you can say delete permanently. So this is nice that WordPress does have a few little steps of undos. When you're creating a post or a page or editing, each time you save, it saves a revision. So if you saved a change and you decide, I don't like that change, you can always roll back that post or page to the previous version. So that is a nice little feature. All right, so let's go to the pages, and we're going to trash that page. And you can also click empty trash rather than going individually and permanently deleting. All right, and also if we hit the plugins, we'll notice we've got this dummy plugin that really doesn't do anything called Hello Dolly. All right, so now we're ready to hit the settings. So we're going to first go to General. So you'll see the site title we already put in when we first installed. Tagline, this should probably have one or two of your primary keywords in it. This is going to show up in your title on most of your pages. Okay, so WordPress address and site address. Why do we have two addresses here? I used to wonder the same thing. And what this is for is some people don't like all those WordPress files and folders cluttering up the root of their site. You know, the WP content, the WP includes the WP admin. So what some people like to do is just create a subfolder, call it WordPress or CMS or something, and just put all those files in there, and then all you've got on the root of the domain is you've got that subfolder, you've got your htaccess, you've got your index.php, your robots.txt, and it's pretty bare. And so it looks a bit nicer. But that's just a personal preference thing. There are some minor security things that go along with that, but for our purposes, we're just going to go with the basic having these addresses be the same. So your email address, this is your primary admin email, and this is if there's any notifications, this is where the emails are going to go to. And if you have any other admins on the site, the notification emails are going to go to them as well. All right, so membership. Anyone can register, or do you want to have to register people manually? Most of the time, if you do want people to register, you'll have that open, but it all depends on what your site's about, whether you want people to have to register to comment. So here you've got the default role. We'll just go over what roles are. Role is just a level of security. A subscriber is just someone, the only thing they can do is they can submit comments. An administrator is someone who has full control over your site. So you want to keep these few and far between. You may only want yourself to be the administrator. An editor is someone who can manage other people's pages and posts, whereas an author can only create their own content, and they can manage their own content. They can publish, but they can't touch anybody else's content. A contributor can create pages and posts, but they can't actually publish them. And you can add additional custom roles that have custom capabilities. So if you want someone to only be able to create pages, then you can have a role for that. If you want someone to only be able to create posts, you can have a role for that. And there's a lot of different things you can have custom roles for. And we're not really going to get into that, but just so you know, that is an option. Time zone. So obviously this is the time zone so that when time is displayed on your site, it shows, this is where we are. This is when this was posted. So I'm in UTC -5. You may be something different. And here's the date and time format. Default works for me pretty well. And then, when does your week start? Does it start Monday, Sunday? Does it start Wednesday? And this is going to have effect if you have things categorized by week or sorted by week. That's when that's important. Okay, writing. So this controls how things are laid out when you're going in and creating pages and posts. The size of your post box. This is how many lines it starts out with. You can always drag that out and make it bigger or smaller, however you like, but this is where it starts out with. So 20 is a good number. Do you want the emoticons to be converted? Do you want to correct the HTML? Personally, I think no, because if you're going to go in there and actually add custom HTML and do your own HTML, you may do some things that WordPress might break. So I would leave this blank. Okay, so default post category. You may want to create a post category that most of your posts go into, and that's not uncategorized as something else. So if you want to create a new category, you can go into posts and categories and add a category. It's pretty simple. Same goes for link categories. And post format, this is a nice little feature. This controls how your posts are displayed on the blog page. So just to make things a little more varied, is it a side? Is it a gallery? Is it a quote? Is it an image? These are pretty self-explanatory, and it just makes it look a little more interesting. Okay, the idea with Press This is you drag this up to your bookmarks toolbar, and then when you're at a page where you see something you'd like to blog about, then you just click the button in your bookmarks and it'll automatically open up a new window, creating a new post, and it'll paste that content that you had highlighted in the post. The problem is that it doesn't work 90% of the time for most people, but if it works for you, great. All right, post via email and remote publishing. These are two things that can be really convenient, but these can also create a nice big hole for a hacker to get in and mess with your site. So it's really a good idea, unless you need this, to disable it. All right, reading. So this controls how your blog page is displayed. You'll see how many posts per page. So if you want 10 posts per page, if you want 20, this is where you set that. The best practice for SEO is to display a summary rather than the full text on your feed, because if you're displaying the full text, then what's going to happen is Google's going to see your blog page, and it's going to see the article, and it's going to say, hey, these two things have exactly the same content. Sure, the blog page has a little more content, but it's got everything that your article does. So why do you need to have that article? So one of those two things is going to get de-indexed, and that's not going to be a good thing for you. So you're going to need to either tell Google to not index your blog page, which is not really a good thing, or you'll want to have a summary. And if you're only putting a summary up there, then Google's not going to see that as being everything that's in your article. And encoding is not that important here. All right, discussion controls commenting. How do you want comments to run on your site? Do you want people to have to register to comment? If so, then you're going to have fewer comments than if you don't. Of course, if you don't, then you are running the risk of having more illegitimate comments, more spammy comments. So you're going to have to take some other steps to try to combat spam. So, and even if you do require registration, you may run into some spam along the way. Here's some interesting article settings. When you link to another WordPress article, it can actually notify that site that you've attributed something to them. And so the site owner can get a notification. And here is if you're on the other end, if someone else is linking to you, you can get this ping back and track back, and you can get notified that someone else is talking about your site. All right, and this controls whether or not comments are on by default. And this can be a little annoying because this is good for pages and posts, whether commenting is on by default. And my problem with that is I don't really want comments on my pages. I only want comments on my posts. So you may need an extra plugin to control comments by post type. All right, do you want the comment author to have to fill out their email and name? Well, yes, obviously you do. If you don't, then you've just got a bunch of anonymous comments, and there's no point in that. Users must be registered to comment. Personal preference, do you want that or not? Automatically close comments on articles older than 14 days. This is a definite must. You definitely want to do that. It doesn't have to be 14 days. It might be longer or less. Whatever the shelf life of your articles is up to you. But if someone's posting on something that's like 2 months old, then it's probably not a legitimate comment. It's probably spam. Enabling threaded comments. This allows people to comment on other comments, so it just makes the commenting a little more interesting. And breaking comments into pages. This rarely is ever needed, so your best bet is just to leave this off. And to me, I would probably want to have the newest comments at the top. But again, that's personal preference, up to you. Do you want to get an email and someone post a comment? If you're getting like 20 comments a day, you probably don't. If you're only getting 1 or 2 a day, then you might. This is another option if it's held in moderation. Yes or no? Moderation is where a comment has to be approved before it actually gets displayed on the site. Really, these two options are redundant in a way, because especially if you have this option selected, and even if you don't have this option selected, there are some instances where a comment may be held for moderation. You down here you can set if there's a certain words or certain IP addresses in the comment, or certain URLs, then it will be held for moderation. And here, if it's got 2 or more links, then, it may be spam and you're going to hold that for moderation. This is where you can define scenarios where you would want a comment just automatically be marked as spam. So we're going to save. All right, media. So WordPress has some nice features when it comes to media, especially with images. It's a little weak on images, but it does a good job. What this is when you upload a picture, it's going to generate a thumbnail. It's going to generate a medium-sized version and a large-sized version, assuming your image isn't already smaller than the large-sized version. It's going to keep the actual image that you uploaded. It's also going to create copies of those images that are resized and potentially cropped. By default, your thumbnail is going to be cropped to 150 by 150, and your medium and large sizes are just resized, and the aspect ratio is maintained. There is a plugin out there that's really good. It's called Simple Image Sizes, and it allows you to add additional image sizes if you want to have more than just the 2 plus the thumbnail. And along with that, you're going to want to have regenerate thumbnails, and what that does is if you've already added a bunch of images and then you go and add another image size, you may want to regenerate your existing images so that they have that image size as well. Both of those are just really useful plugins if you do a lot with images on your site. Auto embeds. There are several media sites that WordPress allows you to auto embed in your site. Flickr and YouTube, also Vimeo, and recently Twitter. You can paste in the URL of a tweet and it will display it in a very nice looking way. This is where you control how big your auto embeds are going to be, or the maximum size they're going to be. They have to fit in uploading files. So by default, as you can see, WordPress uploads your uploaded files, your images, what have you, in WP content/uploads. Personally, I think it's best to have a folder that's in the root of your site. It just looks a little more professional and a bit less cookie cutter. So you can have that be media, you can have that be images. I like something a little more generic like assets. And you actually want to leave out that slash, by the way. That can cause some problems. Full URL path to files. Now what you can do with this is you can actually map a subdomain to that assets folder. And what that's going to do is it's going to actually improve the load time of your site a bit, because it's going to trick the browser into thinking, oh, that's a separate domain altogether, and it's going to load the content in that subdomain in parallel with the content that's in your root domain. So it's going to make your site load just a little bit faster, and every little bit helps. And this is not as good as using a content delivery network. If you use a content delivery network, then obviously you don't want to do this too, because everything is going to be loaded from the content delivery network. And I'm going to get into what a content delivery network is later on. This is if you don't want to spend the money on a CDN or a content delivery network, then this is a nice way to go. All right, privacy. So as you probably saw in the previous video, I set this to be hidden from search engines so that it doesn't get indexed. And you might want to do that if you're building the site and you're not ready for anybody to see it yet. It's not going to block anybody from seeing it, but it is going to keep it from showing up in the search results. And then once you're ready, you can flip the switch and set it allow search engines to index this site. And at that point, you've probably submitted your sitemap to Google and Ask and Bing and that kind of thing. Permalinks. This controls how your URLs are displayed. It used to be that, it would be your site /p equals and then your post ID. And then people started just doing site /post name. The great thing about going with just a post name is it shortens your URL, which is a slight benefit for SEO, because if your main keywords, which is probably going to be in your post name, are way at the end, and you've got like 50 characters in your URL, then it's not going to have as much weight as if it's up a bit closer to the front. So having a shorter URL is really better for your SEO. Okay, so we're done with the basic settings, and I'd like to introduce a few plugins just for basic improving on WordPress.